Okay, whatever. Everybody wave.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Did you wave?
That's a stat.
Alright. You're a huge football fan. Sundays are spent parked in front of a TV watching crushing blow after crushing blow without really thinking about the concussion or other injury risks for players, except as it pertains to your fantasy team. But what do you do when your son or daughter says they want to play? Sure, they're not going to play against 300-pound linebackers, but they are still at risk for injury. And as a parent, how do you balance the benefits of exercise and the risk of them getting hurt? Football is a dangerous sport, and though there are risks involved, men still love the game. Michael Bear, an orthopedic surgeon at Piedmont, gives us the rundown on the pros and cons of football. The discussion comes down to the question of what's the bigger issue, concussions or obesity. But it's really a matter of what you're willing to risk, Cook says. You can't protect your kids forever, and concussions and other injuries are going to be a risk no matter what sport they play. Instead of trying to shelter children, surround them with people who can identify and handle any problems quickly. It is important for parents and young coaches to arm themselves with proper concussion knowledge, she says. If coached and played with head safety in mind, the benefits of sports participation will likely far outweigh the risk. With proper training, equipment, and putting rules in place to protect young athletes, we can make all sports safer. While kids typically recover within a week from their first concussion, and parents, coaches, and doctors have become better at detecting and managing them, Gorgon says some cases don't respond in typical ways. And when your kid is a case, statistics don't matter. As a neuropsychologist and a parent, I am made more cautious by appreciating what we don't know, and not knowing makes truly informed decisions about risks more difficult, she says. For example, we don't know why a few kids doesn't recover after a single injury, or why even fewer kids have catastrophic outcomes after second injuries. Gordon's, a mother of two, is thankful neither of her children has asked her for permission to play football, and she said probably dissuade them from doing so if they ask. I'd rather them play flag football than tackle ball, she says, especially my junior high student who, like many boys his age, has already had one concussion. While Herring says there is no need to prevent your children from playing football, the most important thing is to encourage them to be active. If football is something your healthy child enjoys, then the benefits outweigh the risk, he says. This is true for other sports as well, as long as there is proper training of the coaches and as well as a thought-out plan for injuries and illness, education, and management in place. Parents should expect nothing less. Ultimately, Herring adds, make a conversation between you and your children. Instead of outright forbidding them from exercise, help your child pick the right sport for them, he says. The key is to get them to stay active. Football requires conditioning and strength training, which are excellent forms of exercise and good for cardiovascular health. You do a lot of different types of training when you participate in football, from sprints to distance to interval training and weightlifting, says Dr. Bear. So it is really a good overall health benefit to someone in any age group. Playing football is also a great way to improve concentration. It forces you to focus on what you're doing, explains Dr. Bear. Otherwise, you can be a casualty, so you can't afford to let down your guard. And perhaps most importantly, football teaches the value of teamwork, leadership, and having a good work ethic. You learn time management, you learn discipline, says Dr. Bear. You learn how to deal with losses and disappointments, and those types of things are really critical to youngsters as they get older to have a real-life situation. Child obesity remains one of the biggest problems facing the country, with more than one-third of the kids overweight or obese, according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A lack of exercise is a major component of this epidemic, says Stanley Herring, a clinical professor in the University of Washington Sports Medicine Department. So parents should be encouraging kids to get outside and exercise. A lifelong interest and commitment to health and fitness has never been more important as we face a widespread increase in sedentary lifestyles and childhood obesity, he says. Being active as a child correlates with being active as an adult. Organized sports don't just help kids' bodies, but their minds as well, says Kim Gordon, clinical associate professor in the Graduate School of Professional Psychology at the University of Denver. A study published in the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience in August found that kids who did more aerobic exercise had more compact white matter in their brain, which is linked to better cognitive function. We are just beginning to understand the role of aerobic exercise in brain plasticity, she says. The findings are incredibly verbose for kids. Brain and body fitness appear to be the same thing. Research suggests that physical activity is essential for learning and retention of learned material. But playing football isn't without its risks. According to National High School Sports-Related Injuries Surveillance Study, more than 500,000 high school football injuries occurred between the year 2014 and 2015. And this April, thousands of pro football players agreed to a settlement with the National Football League over serious health conditions associated with concussions. Regardless of how safe you make it, it is still a dangerous sport, explains Dr. Bear. One of the hardest things for a team is to get through the season without people getting injured. Common injuries include ankle sprains, hamstring injuries, meniscus tears, and concussions. And while these injuries can range from mild to severe, they can sometimes be fatal. We've had a number of deaths around the country of kids who've had head injuries from a tackle that have led to death, says Dr. Bear. And of course, that's the worst thing that anyone can imagine. There are also the unknown cause of deaths where kids play and die from congenital problems and that weren't aware of. The most common being an enlarged heart. But some conditions are difficult to pick up on a routine preseason physical. The hard hits of football will lead not only to sprains, broken bones, and other physical injuries, but concussions as well. This brain injury has become a major concern for football players of all ages, and among young players, the problem appears to be getting worse. Between 1997 and 2007, the number of emergency department visits for concussions doubled between 8 and 13 years old, and tripled for older health. According to the Southwest Athletic Trainers Association, while part of the spike is likely due to increased surveillance and awareness, it still outlines a major problem in youth sports, says Laura Cook, Director of Pediatric Brain Injury Programs at the University of Texas, Dallas Center for Brain Health. Head injury is obvious risk of kids playing football, she says. Between 2001 and 2009, the most recent years of CDC data, football sent about 25,000 kids under the age of 19 to the emergency room for traumatic brain injury each year, which was second only to bicycling. In the short term, concussions have memory problems, confusion, nausea, and vomiting. Over time, repeated concussions have been linked to brain damage, and now researchers show that even one concussion can cause long-lasting issues. Gordon says one study published in the journal Neurology in July found that right after concussion, study participants performed 25% worse memory and cognition tests when compared to healthy people. And 1 year later, even though test scores were the same between both groups, those who had a concussion still showed signs of brain damage on imaging scans. We are beginning to better understand the functioning consequences of even a single concussion, Gordon says. We see changes in brain function for weeks and months after an injured athlete identifies themselves to be symptom free. There is an ongoing effort in the arena of sports medicine and through football leagues to try and reduce the risk of injuries. At the high school level, we now know physicians that are on the sidelines, says Dr. Bear. Schools that don't usually have a trainer, they can evaluate players immediately. And the NFL finally passed several new safety rules this year, including allowing an injury spotter to stop the game if a player appears to have suffered from brain injury. There are risks involved with playing football, says Dr. Bear, but I think that's part of the attraction. I think if you got rid of all the risks, you would in fact take away a lot of reason it's attractive to so many people. Although there are great aspects to playing football, there are also some cons that can be considered. The potential for injury greatly increases when a person engages in an athletic event. American football players are suspected to get many head injuries that can lead to health issues later in life. According to a League of Fans, another possible negative of football is that what the sport can do to a person's psyche. An athlete who constantly wins can become egotistical, with an athlete who always loses can become low on self-esteem. A concussion is a traumatic brain injury that alters the way your brain functions. Effects are usually temporary, but can include heartaches, headaches, and problems with the concentration, memory, balance, and coordination. Although concussions are usually caused by the blow to the head, they can also occur when the head and upper body are violently shaken. These injuries can cause a loss of consciousness, but most concussions do not. Because of this, some people don't realize they actually have one. A formal medical definition of a concussion is a clinical syndrome characterized by immediate and transient alteration in brain function, including alteration of mental status and level of consciousness, resulting from mechanical force or trauma. Another main injury is an ACL injury. ACLs can be injured if the knee joint is bent backwards, twisted, or bent side to the side. The chance of injury is higher if more than one of these movements occur at the same time. Contact also can lead to an ACL injury. An ACL injury often occurs during sports. The injury can happen when your foot is firmly planted on the ground and a sudden force hits your knee, while your leg is straight or slightly bent. This can happen when you are changing direction rapidly, slowing down while running, or landing from a jump. This type of injury is common in soccer, skiing, football, and other sports with lots of stop and go movements, jumping or weaving. Falling off a ladder or missing a step on a staircase are another likely cause. Like any other body part, the ACL becomes weaker with age, so a tear happens more likely in people older than the age of 40. The National Football League is more considered about their income from the people of the United States that watch football, rather than the risks that actually occur during the game. Even the spectators believe this is America's game, and they do not take into effect that playing this game has its long-term effects. Americans only worry about themselves and not the others around them.